Okay, welcome back to left 6 years later, a leftovers chat. Sorry, it's been so taken a while for us to get to this one. Life's getting a little hectic. I personally want to give my full attention to what we're doing here. So last week, my attention was split in many different directions. So I'm back here. I'm Ethan. This is 6 years later, a leftovers chat. I've seen the show a whole lot. I'm rewatching it with Benji over there in England, who has not seen the show at all. Say hi, Benji.
Hey.
Hey. We are in season 3. Since we're doing video now, please, if you're watching us, like, share, subscribe, fun stuff. But let's get into it. We are in season 3, episode 2, titled "Don't Be Ridiculous." When Benji watched when we did the reaction video, Benji didn't see the actual credits because he didn't get a copy that had the credits. We've just watched the credits, which had two interesting things. One, it had the theme of Perfect Strangers as the theme song, which kind of fit perfectly with the credits. And the credited writers, who are technically Damon Lindelof and Tom Parado, were labeled in their Wu-Tang generator names to go along with...
yeah, I just got that then, as you were saying it.
Yeah. And I forgot what it was. Something Donkey Kong and something Contagious. I should have written that down, but I didn't. And just for fun, since everyone else does it when they talk about this episode, I put in mine. I'm Killer Bop Boozy, and Benji over there is Danger Spunky.
You know, I'm sure I'm sure I did it the other week, and I got something totally different. So I don't know if you just pick that, and you're like, yeah, he won't do his due diligence. I'm just gonna call him Danger Spunky.
No, I think there's more than one Wu-Tang name generator online.
That's possible.
And I think that it's not in a way that's actually scientific or the same way that it's going to give you the same name every time. I just don't think it works that way.
Well, you know what? I'm happy to settle with Danger Spunky.
Okay. Well, can you just call me Killer for short? That would be great.
Okay, Pop.
All right. So, since we just watched the credit sequence, what do you think of that and kind of how they're doing the credits this season?
Well, first, did they do that in episode 1 as well, or was episode 1 like without credits?
I'm pretty sure episode 1 was without credits, and they just smashed right into. I could be wrong. I might have to go check.
Transition.
Yeah. No, it just went.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, it just transitioned from the Millerites right into the Guilty Remnant, right?
Yeah.
And it just opened on the Millerites. And like I said before, it's a budget issue. So they were given the budget. No one watches when it was on. No one watches the show. So it did so well critically in season 2 that they allowed it to come back to season 3. They didn't give it 10 episodes. They gave it 8 episodes, and they had to make other budget considerations. And from what we know in this episode, they went to Australia. So that probably cost a lot of money. And some actors' stories got slashed a little bit, as we kind of start to see through these episodes. And so they didn't have money to do a new credit sequence for the season. So they took season 2 credits and they used a different song every week. And this week, it was the Perfect Strangers theme. Now, before we get started, and I know we're going to go into more of this, we've had a Perfect Strangers thread running through the leftovers, right? And what do you think about them using that song there? But I mean, we're going to get into more Perfect Stranger stuff in a little bit, but just seeing that, what do you think? Because I know, culturally speaking, there's a little bit of a divide. I'm much older than you, and I grew up with Perfect Strangers on U.S. television. So
I mean, it definitely doesn't have the same nostalgia factor for me. And of course, it's a little bit weird seeing the same visual credits with a different song, but you start to get used to it like 20, 30 seconds in, and then you start to say, hey, this does kind of, I see how that lines up. And I'm pretty sure I have heard that song before, so I knew it enough to get that feeling of like, oh, here's a song I know, and it's in this place, and here's these two worlds that I know that are coming together, and that's cool. But yeah, I don't think it would have had the same impact on me as it might have done on you when you saw it the first time.
Yeah, and the first time I saw it, it's like there's a bell going off. You're like, oh, they're following through with this one little joke they made in season 1 and this other little joke they made in season 2, and they're doing it again here. I believe I asked you to watch an episode of Perfect Strangers like months ago when we were doing the other episodes, right?
Yeah, no, I remember because I think I said at the time, but I watched through the like entire episode, and I was trying to find like links to the leftovers in like every sentence, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to see how this relates. I'm glad I watched it though. It was a good episode. I enjoyed it. I had a good time.
So I had you watch that episode. Did you realize that after that I had you watch an episode of Perfect Strangers because I knew that this was going to happen at some point?
No, I didn't. I just thought you'd made me watch an episode of Perfect Strangers because it's fun.
But
It's
it makes
a fun
sense
thing
now.
to do as a fan of the show. Yeah, it makes more sense now because I got familiar with the face of the actor, even though it was kind of pixelated. I could tell like the minute I saw him, I was like, yeah, that's the same guy.
Plus, George Brevity gives us a little hint too, right? They kind of cover it all with George. So what they're doing in this season of The Leftovers is, like I said before, is you get this. All right, so not only did it work so well what Damon Lindelof and Tom Perrotta did in season 2, as far as some of the crazy aspects and some of the weirdly funny aspects, we're gonna lean in to those aspects here. And if that means that we're gonna have Regina King come back but jump on a trampoline, if we're going to have Nora Durst have a tattoo, it's going to be a Wu-Tang Clan tattoo. If we're going to have Perfect Strangers joke spread out, we're going to take it to its conclusion. And we're going to name the episode Don't Be Ridiculous, which is the catchphrase from Perfect Strangers. And I don't know if you remember that from watching the episode, but like at some point during the episode, Yalki or Balky says, don't be ridiculous. You know what I mean? So that's where we are. All right. So I mentioned this before. The Pillar Man is played by Turk Pipkin, old comrade of Harry Anderson's, who was in many acting roles, including The Sopranos, who plays the Pillar Man. We see him at the top, right? The Pillar Man has died and fell off his pillar. We find Sandy and the man in the pillar were married as Nora questions her about his quote-unquote departure. She also questions many witnesses who all said he departed. Her investigation leads her to Matt, who admits he helped Sandy bury her husband. We opened on the Pillar Man and the Gary Busey. You got anything? You were pretty shocked watching the reaction about him just dying.
Yeah, I was at the time. I mean, it's just I'd be worried if you weren't shocked to see a man fall out of a tower like that. But thinking about it afterwards, it is kind of what you were saying about this season being shorter. Certain storylines just kind of need to happen, and we need to wrap certain stuff up. And I feel like that guy was another kind of dangling thread that was like, he's been there for a while. We kind of know about him, we kind of don't. Let's just give him some closure, if you want to call it closure. It's not the nicest type of closure to give a guy, but at least they gave it to him.
Yeah, and they tied it back into Sandy from last year, who
and that's cool because I this is embarrassing to admit, but I'd forgotten that. Like, I remembered the scene of Sandy, but I'd forgotten that was the same person, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Did you figure it out when you watched it again?
No, I just figured out right now when you said Sandy.
Okay.
And I was like, there you go.
Yeah. And it's kind of, you hear Nora talking over before they start talking to her. And then there's all these interviews with people who are describing a different departure, and it's all different. Do you know what I mean? And from the very beginning, I wasn't a fan of any kind of secondary departures happening in the show, and I don't think they happen. But one person says he popped. The other person said he dissolved. Just, their stories don't line up in any way.
Mm-hmm.
So even for a good fraud investigator, what I think Nora is, it doesn't line up.
Mm-hmm.
And she really did have to ask the name of the priest. I don't think she did. I think she knew who it was exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when she goes to see Matt, they have a really in-depth discussion about helping Sandy. And do you have anything about that little scene between Matt and Nora? I mean, did you notice his nose was bleeding?
I did. Which, yeah. I'm trying to recall if we've seen anything in episode 1 that could tie into that, apart from Kevin and Matt having a physical tussle. Maybe that's happened again. But my focus, yeah.
I mean, this is after I think they've had the fight, and I think Mary's left, right? Yeah.
I just didn't know if it somehow happened again. Maybe I don't know who else in the camp would be fighting Matt. Most of the people seem to love him, like this widow. But yeah, what caught my attention in this scene was the fact that Mary was gone, which is, I think I said last time that I didn't think Mary would be going, for a few reasons, mainly because it would just feel like wrong to have her be this kind of slow burn, long fuse payoff that takes like 2 seasons to happen, and we finally get Mary back. And then within the very start of season 3, she's gone again. And I just didn't think that was going to happen. But apparently it happened, so shows you what I know.
Yeah, and I don't mind, because for the most part, people that are listening to this, I don't think are watching along. I think they know the future, and I'm not going to spoil anything that's dramatic, but you do see this slow banana peeling away of characters.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I always thought that Janelle Maloney was meant for more, but you get to the 3rd season, right? Like, let's say Leftovers had the same momentum and viewership that Watchmen did in its 1st season. Now Damon Lindelof is out of ideas for Watchmen specifically, and he doesn't want to do it anymore. And he always said it was one and done. But if the Leftovers had the same response that Watchmen did, I mean, he probably could have done the Leftovers for a couple more seasons at least. So, but he was given a truncated season, and we have to focus on the characters that we know already. And Mary pieced out with Noah. She couldn't take Matt's fanaticism. And, I'm wondering if that would be the case if it wasn't coming up on the 7th anniversary of the departure and he thought the new Messiah was the sheriff of his town.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I get what you're saying about like stripping away these outer parts so we can focus on the characters that we've been with like the whole way, the real meat of the show. But it always felt like Mary was kind of like an extension of Matt's character, and we understand Matt's character by the way he interacts with Mary, and their relationship and the status of their kind of connection. So to lose that, well, it's like, I get maybe we're doing that so we can focus on Matt, but part of the whole thing about her being there was like, that is who Matt is, and it's kind of hard to understand Matt without the context of Mary.
And they bring that up a little bit too. I mean, Nora, in a Laurie kind of way, very much points out about the devotion that Sandy showed the man in the pillar, and paralleling it with the devotion that Matt showed to Mary. And I guess maybe there's something in Matt that feels like he can be a little selfish in this time because of how much devotion he did show to Mary. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. It is a bit of a weird thing for, like Nora points out, to have that much devotion for so long, to be so, relatively affected by her leaving. Maybe it weighs easier on him because he knows at the least she's healthy. Oh no, mate, he doesn't even think that though, because he thinks if she leaves, then she won't be. So, yeah, I don't know.
Maybe that
It's a weird
shifted,
one.
and I mean, I can only imagine the arguments that have happened in the house. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to ask you this. I mean, Matt is angry at the insinuation that he would lie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if you noticed an extra flare up when he was denying that, because he never lied to Nora, I guess is what she's saying. He lied to her.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty clear. Like when he said like I didn't lie, and I was trying to like play back the conversation in my mind. I was like, I think he's right. I don't think he does lie at any point. He just kind of avoids questions and gives half answers. So it's important enough to him, his kind of honesty, that he will go to great lengths to preserve it.
And I also think that, he said, "Tell me another time I lied." And she said, "When our parents were in the burning house," and you said they were already in heaven, right? And I think he's saying I didn't lie, mostly to that, because he believes they are in heaven. And it just goes to show, like, this is a Nora episode, pure and simple, right? So, and it also goes to show that grudge that Nora is holding on to. I mean, that's a deep one. That's kind of like what they would call some core programming in Westworld, right?
Yeah. I mean, that kind of line though is like, that is, so I like Nora. I mean, I love Nora's character and Carrie Coon and the whole kind of progression. But if there's one thing that I don't particularly like about Nora, it's her way of delivering those kind of cutting, cold, like lines like that, where it's I'm trying to find the right word for it, but she's, I don't know, callous isn't the right word, but kind of detached, or sometimes she can be a bit of an asshole sometimes, and we can understand why, but I don't think it changes the fact that she is when she says stuff. Not particularly that example, but we'll see. Further on in this episode.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree, and I think the scene later in this parallels to another scene that I have to remember. Oh yeah. Lens. Let's keep Lens in mind when we're talking about that other scene. You know what I mean? The end of Lens. I'm ready to go back. Move on. Is that cool?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, not a discussion point, more like a reference point. I think in this conversation, Nora tells Matt that she is staying out of the whole business of the book, which seems noteworthy.
It is, and I actually made a note and I didn't read it. Yeah, she made it very clear where she stands on the book. Like, she's like, I'm not even going to acknowledge it.
Except from she later does to John. So,
well, let's, we're gonna let's observe her behavior in this episode. Kevin and Nora argue about hampers as they clean out the Pillar Man's effects. John swings by and leaves once Nora throws him shade about the book. Nora is openly contentious with Sandy and annoyed with Kevin's decent treatment of the visitors in town. What I found most noteworthy here was in order to like quell her, he calls her the most patient and understanding person he knows. And she gets really mad when he says God bless. Do you have anything?
Well, obviously the bit about the book that I was saying about doesn't sound to me like she's staying out of it.
Yeah, she's Passive aggressive, right? I mean,
That's the one. That's the
yeah,
word that I was looking for.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's being passive aggressive,
Hmm.
and it's, I don't know if it actually boils over to aggressive in this episode. It does, but at certain strangers, but not for this reason.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? No, she
Hmm.
definitely turns aggressive in the scene we'll talk about later.
Hmm.
Um, cool. Nora goes to the hospital to get her cast off when a doctor mentions that an orderly saw her slam her arm in a car door. She denies this and gets a call from former Perfect Stranger star Mark Linn-Baker, who says that if she wants to see her children again, she should come and meet him in St. Louis. She forces permission for the trip from George Brevity at the DSD.
Have we met George Brevity before?
Oh yeah, in Lens, he was the
Is he the one that turns up and he's trying to knock on Erica's? Right. Yeah.
Yep. And so it was nice to bring him back.
Mhm.
Um,
It looks like a remarkably chilled out department for the subject matter it's dealing with, the DSD. They look like they're just it's another office job.
well, at this point, it's just pure bureaucracy, right? They're just it's daily paperwork shuffle. Um, and my favorite thing that I noticed this time that I didn't notice the other times I've watched is if you see a poster in the background, it says, "If you don't see someone, say something." So
That's good.
the poster is, "If you see something, say something," right?
Yeah, yeah,
And if you
yeah.
don't see someone, say something.
Yeah, the version we have here is see it, say it, sort it. You see it, you
Right?
say it, we'll sort it.
Okay. Um, so it's just a follow through with this character. It's a follow through with. Now, where do you think Nora is coming from now with this situation that has been placed in her lap and also in our lap?
Mm-hmm.
It has been given more weight than the scams of the past. It has been given
Mm-hmm.
more weight so far right away than the demon Azrael.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where do you think her mind is at? Just think for a second. Where is she
Yeah.
at this moment? Is she at pure? I need to snuff this scam, this carrot stick as she calls it out.
Well, I think her head is certainly not where she claims it to be when she's speaking to George Brevity and the DSD. When she's speaking to them, she's kind of got that calm, this is a scam, don't worry, I'll sort it out. Might be a big thing, just let me go look at it. But I think that's more just like, it's a useful excuse for her to go and check it out because deep down she's like, I actually want to see what this is about. And a note about the call itself, I was surprised to see the call that particular call come so early in the season. Because in the trailer, which I know is you can't make your judgments based solely on the trailer, but in the trailer it comes last. It's like the big moment at the end. So the fact that it came like episode 2, kind of like early in episode 2, made me kind of consider like what are the implications of that, and I was like, good. I'm glad it came early because that gives us the entirety of the next however many episodes to chase this down and have this really interesting storyline. Whereas if it come up like episode 5, 6, 7, how much time would we have given it and how rushed might it have been? So yeah, even though I didn't expect it to come so soon, I was like, great, let's do it. They're not wasting any time.
They're really not. And we're not. So Nora goes to see Kevin. Well, she goes home to pack. Nora and Kevin briefly discuss her trip to St. Louis for work. I guess, here she gets to be, in a funny way, with him, passive aggressive about the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did she ask to take it at this point?
Yeah, but
And he's like, "There's only one copy."
yeah, yeah, he seems a little bewildered.
There was some talk going around that maybe he wasn't coming home to change his shirt, as he says.
Oh, yeah, definitely not.
You think this need of his to do this again has gone so great that he's taken his lunch breaks? At this point, we're talking, drug addict status. If that's the case,
I mean, I don't know, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised. Just the way he walks in and like his mannerism with her, he seems very distracted, like he's got something on his mind, and yeah, I just find it unlikely he's coming home to change his shirt. I mean, why would he be changing his shirt anyway?
I don't know if you know this, but he's a perfect looking man, and he can't have any sweat come through. I mean, you heard they kind of follow through on.
Did you not watch season 2 where there's like 2 episodes where like the entire episode he's covered in sweat and he doesn't change his shirt once?
Oh yeah, I noticed. No, I'm kidding. But he wasn't in a position to change his shirt. Okay, he was the same dirty brown shirt. He had other things on his mind. He was trying to find out where his mind was.
He has other things on his mind now.
Well, he does, because he literally talks to Nora about having like 3 or 4 hampers. That's their conversation as they're going up to the Pillar Guy's personal effects. So,
from the way you're like pushing back on me here, I feel like there is more to him changing his shirt, and maybe he was changing his shirt, and there's going to be some big reveal about the shirts coming later. We already had a shirt reveal scene in season 1. I'm down for another, but
just wait till we get to the hotel scene and the iPhone, my friend.
Well, we already got a hotel scene on an iPhone.
Well, we're gonna get another one. No, not another one. I'm talking about this episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about for a second how passive aggressive she is. What does she say? She says, very funny. Can the holy balls be busted?
Mm-hmm.
And she says, we are both on the same page about this. Does she use the word ridiculous here?
I don't know. Along those lines, yeah.
I think she said, don't be ridiculous to the doctor. Let's go back to that for a second. What did you think of the doctor saying that to her?
Well, from the minute he said it, I knew it was true. Because,
right.
Why else would it be? Can you imagine if that guy had been lying and that was just thrown into the show for no reason? Like, it wouldn't happen. So, yeah, I knew he was, like, that was real, that had happened. But, I don't know, I was still in the dark as to why.
Also in the Durst Jameson, in the Jameson household, very, very adamant that they don't lie. You know what I mean?
Mm.
She was very much saying she doesn't lie, right? Don't be ridiculous. I don't lie. At least I think that's how it went.
I think what she said was, why would I do a thing like that?
Right. And we find out later, right?
Mm. I'm sure there are easier ways to do whatever she was wanting to do. Seems like a kind of weird one.
Maybe I think she doesn't like to admit it, but I think she gets panicky. So, and also from Kevin's point of view, he's starting to he kind of likes that book. He wants it. He wants it. That's his book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he wants to hold on to it.
Yeah, kind of like how Lily was given to Kevin, not Nora.
Right. Totally.
She has this kind of ownership thing going.
Yeah. And so were you watching Fargo? Have you seen all of Fargo? I know we've had this discussion before. I forget what you said.
1 and 2.
Okay. If you were watching season 3 of Fargo at the same time I was watching this, which I was, Carrie Coon is also in season 3 of Fargo.
Oh, she is?
Yes. And that's why I watched season 3 of Fargo. And I did enjoy it very much. Her character, it's a little spoiler for Fargo, but nothing big. Her character in Fargo has trouble with electronics like this when she goes to the airport. Mm-hmm. Something about electronics aren't working, and they say it was a complete coincidence. But here we do have the start at the airport of her beginning to have some trouble with electronics, which is kind of weird, especially because it's her. And this first one is insisting on that, she says she has an infant, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, it's like one great big cosmic joke being played on Nora Durst at this point. Which is, I'm sure that's how she sees it as well.
And since we know a little bit about her future, quote unquote, all that's in there too. That last scene from the first episode. Also, I just want to mention that in the background, she's going to St. Louis. They're playing Meet Me in St. Louis, an old Judy Garland song from an old Judy Garland movie that my mother raised me on. So I've heard that a lot. It was a big cabbage has a cabbage smell. That's all I'll say. Done. Did you have anything to say about the technology?
No. Apart from it's kind of a weird correlation between this kind of technology stuff and then what happens later in the episode when Nora's iPhone gets dunked.
Well, that's right now. That's right now. Yep.
But just before that, the scene of the airport, I think, is the first time. It's like the first of maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 times this episode when Nora like walks like straight towards the camera, and we just get like a close up of her face at the end, and we can kind of track her mental state progression through the episode by seeing like what's on her face when she's walking towards the camera. Right now, not much. She's annoyed. She's mad.
Well, let me do a little bit of Google searching here just for a second, because I should have done this before. St. Louis to Kentucky. Wow. Okay, so we're looking at the most a plane ride is, depending on where you are, is from St. Louis to Kentucky. That's where they said Lily is, right?
Yeah, but I think she's still in St. Louis at this point, right?
Right, but I'm just trying to figure out if, because you mentioned Nora walking right towards the camera. Is this in her plan already? Right? Like she's thinking.
So, because she orders a rental car the minute she checks in at the hotel.
Right, because Texas to Kentucky. Looks like a much shorter trip from St. Louis to Kentucky. So I'm not really sure. I could be wrong about that.
I have no idea of, I want to say Midwestern. Where even is that in America? It's like Southern, right?
All right, man. This is where I'm not good at geography, so okay, so Texas, do you know where Texas is?
Yeah, it's like kind of the middle, but near the bottom.
Yeah. But if you go up through 2 states more to the west, you go to the right. You go to the right a little bit, and you go up. You're in Illinois, where St. Louis is.
Okay.
Or it's on the curve of St. Louis and Missouri. I'm really sorry. I am apologizing to 100% of Americans for my geography right now. I'm making the same mistake as our officially elected leader right now. As far as where the states are, it's very hard because I'm looking at this map and I know St. Louis looks right on the line, because it's St. Louis, Missouri. I know that, and it's right on the line before Illinois. And one state over, Missouri borders Kentucky for a little bit, and Kentucky is one state in from Virginia. So we're kind of in the Midwest towards the middle, towards the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Again, America. I am sorry. I am not good with geography, even of my own country. I know where I am. I'm in the Mid-Atlantic North region. It would probably take me not too long to get there. But I believe it's all considered the Midwest, and I'm so scared about how this is going to turn out. So my question is she going to? We've already decided she's making the plan. She's going to go. right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when she gets to Mark Linn-Baker's hotel room, he immediately throws her phone into the toilet. He explains there are scientists who can use LADR, low amplitude Denzinger radiation, as it's called, to send people to where, quote unquote, they went, the departed. She tries to explain that the people who went through have just been incinerated, and he explains that this is not for idiots to be fooled by high-end scammers, but smart people who want to take some control. Nora takes the testimonials of those who have quote unquote gone through. She smokes in her hotel room after hooking up a fine tinfoil sheet for that, and she watches the testimonials.
Mm-hmm.
So for a guy who had some 80s star power, um, and I don't know what he's been doing. I don't want to say he's fallen off the radar because I don't know if that's true. But he was in a sitcom. He was in a movie with Peter O'Toole in the 80s called My Favorite Year that I've seen. He really, so far, gives the performance of the season
Mm-hmm.
and destroys it. What do you think of that?
Yeah. I mean, this is. Am I allowed to ask? Does he show up again, or is this the one time we get him?
This would be the one time we see him.
Right. So I mean, it kind of feels like this is his one. It's his one shot, and he definitely milks it for all it's worth. And
But not
yeah.
in a bad way.
No, yeah, not in a bad way. That's that gives off the wrong connotations. He definitely he does a good job. He's A plus acting.
Right.
Sometimes
And
I try too hard.
yeah, no, and just the seriousness he brings to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's got to be like a. So that guy, the way he speaks ordinarily when he's like somebody who hasn't seen Perfect Strangers and then watching this, they're thinking, "Oh, this guy's pretty serious." You know, wow, I'm gripped. But for somebody who has seen Perfect Strangers and they know him as like a sitcom kind of guy, I feel like it really doubles that depth of the situation because it goes from like that extreme to the other. You can tell me if I'm right.
I mean, yeah, totally. And he gives you the whole range of emotions. He knows what Nora's trying to say to him because he's heard it before from other people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? This is a man who he explains it. He wasn't, taken with the four other cast members. So there's a parallel there with Nora with her four family members. That's why she knows the odds of it.
Mm-hmm.
She's probably been through those feelings of suicidal feelings too. So she thinks she can pinpoint what's going on. Maybe he was in the exact same place mentally when he first heard about the quote unquote machine.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And and the whole time he's talking, aren't they flashing to her kids, right?
Yeah,
I
they
think
do.
some flashes to her kids, and it's all she can think about. So, it's hard to tell right now if she's in such a state of denial about what it can actually do, or if it's something that she is buying into and wants to try.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's one of them where it's like it means the possibility of what this guy is suggesting means so much to her that she's got to like she has to exhaust every kind of possible way of like dissecting and breaking it down and figuring out what kind of lie this guy is running. Because it's like I mean it's the same as any kind of valuable thing. Like you're buying a home, it means a lot to you. You go and you check it out. That is not a good analogy. But she's not. I think the reason she's being so kind of critical of it is because deep down it's a huge thing for her.
It's a dream scenario, and I think the things that happen between now and when she is in her room with Kevin at the end kind of like it cements it. She's not going to check out anything. She's not going to bust anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So
I had a question, not a question, but in terms of like the way, because I feel like it's a risk when you bring science into a show like this,
Mm.
because you know people are going to fact check you. I didn't, but do you know off the top of your head if people have actually, like, how much of this stuff that you're saying is based on like real physics and how much of it is like convenient for the show?
I have no idea, and I'll tell you why. I'm always keeping that song in the back of my mind when it comes to this show,
Mhm.
right?
But I
So
mean, well, that's why I'm asking, because it feels like by introducing the science, they're kind of betraying that song. You know what I mean? Like they're not letting the mystery be.
it's hard to talk about. It's a situation where it's hard to talk about, um, especially because he sets it up at the beginning of the series, Damon Lindelof, that they're not gonna let you know what happened,
Mm-hmm.
and that gives him full license to tease you
Mm-hmm.
any way he wants. So, you know, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was telling you that they're not going to talk about where the departure people went, so they can
Mm-hmm.
talk about where the departure people went. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
and I mean it does, like, speaking hypothetically, if Damien Lindelof goes, all the way, and we actually do find out certain aspects of what happened, and we do find out what we were promised we wouldn't find out.
mm-hmm,
The fact that he's told us and we've been expecting not to find out,
mm-hmm,
it makes it so much more impactful. Because imagine you're watching a show, right, where it has a premise like this, but we're under the impression that at any moment we're going to start unraveling the mystery, because you think to yourself, that's got to be what the show is about. Like, this is the premise, so the whole show has got to be about what happened. um and so when we get to that place of like actually finding out what happened, it's cool, but it's also not really that exciting, because it was kind of a given from the start, and we just assumed that the show would obey the rules and it introduced this mystery, so we're going to find out, and that kind of happens. Whereas a show like this, where we from the start we just kind of give up on the idea of finding out what happens, it means then suddenly if it does start to come in, it's just like it's a freebie. It's like it's like a bonus, and we weren't expecting it, and so it's so much more delightful when it does come, because we weren't expecting it. But I mean, that's speaking hypothetically. If this does continue down this path, maybe we just got baited out, and we're back to let the mystery be next episode.
you're still in the middle of Lost, right?
Yeah.
How, last time we talked, you watched The Constant. How far have you gotten since then? Any far? I know you're taking a break from TV.
Uh, um, I actually don't think I've watched an episode since that.
Okay, it's
I
busy
mean,
time. Things are happening.
yeah, the
When I ask you those questions, it's not because I'm a school teacher. Have you watched your TV? Um, um, these are all good questions that can all be discussed fully after you watch, I would say, both series completely. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Um, I
and
don't want
I want
to.
that day to come as much as you do.
I'm enjoying this part very much. These are my favorite things to listen to you talk about, quite frankly, or the things I'm not allowed to respond to.
I bet.
So you had a theory early on about the iOS systems on our phones, and I think this was just the way of the writers letting you know when he throws the toilet in the phone.
No, I don't.
I think that was just basically saying, "Hey, man, your iOS theory is not. We're putting it where it belongs, in the toilet.
Doesn't hold water.
It doesn't hold water. You better have a bag of rice, or you're out of
But
luck."
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't even call it a theory. It was more a discrepancy. It was
Okay.
more, I don't know how to podcast, so I'm just gonna
No,
yam
it turned
about
into a theory, dude.
iPhones.
It turned into a theory. It was the iOS theory, and I think
Yeah.
this time the writers were saying,
I mean, it was
"No,
kind of weird though. If you look at the first episode, and he's got this proper old iPhone system, and then the next episode he's got like a modern one. I just don't understand. How did that happen? Did they film the pilot like 2 years before?
that's usually what happens. They film a pilot for a very long time before the second episode."
Oh, really? Well,
Of TV.
yeah.
Yeah,
That
usually it's like a
now I say
usually
it, I realize it's not such a crazy thing.
yeah.
But
The Sopranos famously had like 2 years between.
oh wow.
Game of Thrones had 2 or 3 years between the pilot and the second episode because
Really?
they like reshot a new pilot. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
That's
So
wow.
yeah. But Mark Linn-Baker and the show, The Leftovers, are taking this machine pretty seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So we can say don't be ridiculous all we want. Now, Nora continues to have trouble with electronics. Her GPS in the car malfunctions, but she still drives to the playground in Kentucky, where she spies on Lily before being spotted by Christine. Does she have trouble with the gas station? I forget. Does she have trouble with the gas station, the pump, and
I
the
can't even
credit
remember
card?
the pump.
Yeah. But
No.
there is a very low, like mellow piano interlude here, and that is also a slower version of the Perfect Strangers theme.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you listen to it again, okay. Okay. So,
Wait,
Nora. Yeah.
did we already go past the bit when Nora's in the hotel room?
Yeah, I mentioned it. Where she watches.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have.
She sits in a white robe and smokes and watches.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was all I was gonna say was, the images were definitely there.
Sure, but she's intently watching those images, right? Like she's kind of buying. Yeah. She's buying into this, especially when Mark Linn-Baker points out that he has,
2
certificates from
That was the game changer.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the whole family smoke now, because I know Kevin does still, and we've seen Tommy and now Nora, and so did
I don't know if Tommy
Laurie.
was smoking just because he shot somebody.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But yeah, there's some GR vibes.
Yeah. Nora has issues getting out of the airport parking lot. She blows up at a person honking their horn. Before she completely breaks down, she goes to see Erica Murphy, and they discuss her kids. Nora gives the origin of her tattoo, and after some comforting words from Erica, they partake in a much-needed trampoline session to the tune of the Wu-Tang Clan "Protect Your Neck," the Jump Off, which is a very, very hard song to get cleared on YouTube for any kind of review. And we got Erica back for a day. We're back after some technical difficulties here. So what I was saying was Nora goes to see Erica Murphy. So Regina King is back. So what do you think when you saw that?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised because following episode 1 and our kind of little discussion of that, I was not waiting for Erica to come back. Like I'd already in my mind kind of written off that character coming back. So it was a nice little moment. Get some, what I imagine is basically closure with that character. We probably won't be going down that route again. But I'm glad we got it, and we got some pretty cool scenes, like the trampoline one. That's got to be like I was wrong when I said this last time about a scene in season 2, but that's got to be like one of the more iconic, like the cinematography on it. Like that's a fairly recognizable, like that's a leftovers moment, right?
Sure, and it's fun. And you get one of the single funniest moments in the leftovers in the scene I get, which is Nora Durst calling it the Wu-Tang Band, and Regina correcting her to be the Wu-Tang Clan. But it's also interesting how very easily it's a sequel. A lot of the stuff this is almost the Lens sequel episode, right?
Yeah, and actually, now you say that, it hadn't occurred to me at the time, but afterwards I was like, hang on a minute, like this is the first time we've seen the two of them together since Erica like threw a rock through her window.
Yeah.
So what gives?
I mean, I guess over time
they've both matured and they've had
it's
real
been 3
problems
years,
come to them, and yeah, I mean, I guess it has.
Erica's daughter has died. She was able to bury it and come to terms with it. Nora's kids departed, so she is still not come to terms with it. As Erica said, she was able to bury her kids. Obviously Erica and John divorced, and her ex-husband married hit her man's ex-wife, right? There's been a lot of stuff. They've been through a lot of stuff together, including she probably maybe was helpful in the time when she had to give up Lily. So
right.
It's good to have a friend there. She gives the origin story of the tattoo. She had her kid's name on it. She didn't want to be reminded, so she slammed her door in a car and then got someone to tattoo over it. She didn't know how to explain it because Nora apparently has a problem lying but not lying. It's a relationship they have now that it's easy to cry on someone's shoulders when you just need to have someone to listen. And and she bought a trampoline. So, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird, but I liked it.
Yeah.
It was comforting to see her again. So it's comforting to see that they're in a good place. At least those two are. So then Nora goes, right, out of town after seeing Erica. She goes back into town and crosses the bridge and gets pulled over by Tommy. And this will be my audio clip du jour. Okay. And I'm just going to play it and hear it, and I'll figure out how to do that later. Okay.
I didn't go to see her. I was in St. Louis on business.
You live in Kentucky. How'd you even know where to find her?
She's not hiding, Tom. She's putting pictures of Lily on Instagram and Facebook.
Her name's not Lily anymore. Christine just wants to know if she should be worried.
She came after me. She filed for custody because she made the single worst mistake of her life. She wanted to fight me. And did I fight back, Tom?
No.
No, I didn't. I sat across from her at the deposition, and all I saw was a mother who had lost her child. And I gave her child back. And now she doesn't know who I am. So no, Tom, nobody has to worry.
I spent the next 10 years of my life knocking on some asshole's fucking door who wanted nothing to do with me. He'd moved on. He had a new family. So I wish they wouldn't have told me, because I was already where I belonged.
Well, do you know what I wish? I wish you'd never left her from me.
I didn't leave Lily for you, Nora. I left her for my dad. I didn't even know you existed.
Okay, so speaking about being the sequel to Lens here for a second, Nora goes hard at somebody, right, with her deepest feelings, and then gets dunked on again. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's a good pickup. I noticed.
Like, and she goes extra creepy. She goes, and it's not even like upset or angry. It turns straight into like threatening, like, you know what I wish, almost like Jack Nicholson in The Shining, like. And then he's like, hey, bro, sorry, I didn't even know who you were. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely, to use an overused word, savage. It just totally undermines Nora's whole angle. Like, because she's, like, we can backtrack in a second, talk about, the basis Nora has for where she is, and yeah, she has some, she has some weight to her angle, but she just gets exposed so hard by this because it's like it's not about you, like not everything is about you, Nora, and that's just kind of what this is. You are not like the center of this whole connected world.
It's also about like giving people the amount of latitude they deserve or need for whatever is going on in their life. And after a certain amount of time, joining back in the real world for whatever purpose it is, and not carrying that baggage with you into your other interactions with other people to the point where you're, stalking. Right. So we find out exactly what happened to Lily.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is where we find out exactly what happened to her. She, or was it with Erica?
No, I think this is where.
Yeah, this is it. It's like she just saw a mother who needed her baby. She remembered what that was like, and she basically, gave up Lily to go back to her mother because she did. But she is always laying her pain out to everyone, as she did in season 1, knocking over the cup, having a guy pick it up. You know what I mean? In Lens season 2, which was purely just trying to take Erica down to kind of spread her pain. And here with Tommy, she's trying to spread the pain, give some of it back to him. And everyone's like, we're really sorry for what happened, but that's not, you can't treat people like this just because of that.
Yeah. Although it doesn't seem she learns the lesson from Tommy here, because
no.
I mean, I wanted to dwell a little longer on this stuff before we move on, but she does kind of the ultimate moment of this episode of her kind of lashing out at other people and like, well, if I'm suffering, you should be suffering too, when she gets that picture up. But before that, to be fair to Nora, you can understand watching it like just how not unlucky, but like just how hard of a run she's had in terms of, obviously we know her backstory and what happened with her children and family, and we've seen all the events that have kind of transpired, and then Lily came along, and it's this kind of like moment of hope, and this is growing, and we kind of spend the entire season 2 with her, and then as gets revealed here, Nora does the right thing, and then it ends up that she's just kind of feels like she's been totally screwed over by the universe, and it's like, we feel bad for her because that is some pretty atrocious fortune, but I feel like we just come down on Tommy's side in this one. Maybe it's the way that he delivers. He just seems more calm, and he's the one that's actually thinking normally.
And it seems like this. I've written down here, like, it seems like, Tommy, has shown the most progress of all of these characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's in a good place. He's had time to reflect. And Nora is just a bag of pain, right? And you come down because everything Tommy says is right. Like, everything's 100% right. You can't argue with anything. You can't argue that she's not supposed to be doing the stalker thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, Lily doesn't know who you are. You spent so much time with her. She was a baby. Yeah, I mean, I got nothing to add. It's just, it's all right,
Mm-hmm.
But at some point you do feel for Nora, and she's got this thing going on, and it's all been brought up again by this phone call from Mark Linn-Baker. So now it's, she was planning to go see Lily anyway. So now we have things toppling on
Yeah.
on top of other things.
And I mean, it is like Nora says, like she calls herself Nora Cursed, rhymes with dust. So she has definitely got that attitude about it, and it just shines through in most of their interactions.
And yeah, I think it is a good time to point out what she does with this. You know, she could have gone to Sandy and said, "Listen, we found his body. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We understand you were lying." She could have done that in a quiet place, but she doesn't. She goes to Kinko's, like she suggested Matt should go to Kinko's, right? She has this poster. Yeah. It looks like the guy's face is even almost in a Jesus-like pose on the coroner's table, right? The big poster. And she makes that big poster and she puts it up there. Now, on one hand, Sandy has a bunch of people that have lied anyway. But on the other hand, this is just a big fuck you to everybody, right? And Nora looks like she feels good about it.
Yeah, and that's why earlier I was saying, picking up on the way she walks toward the camera, I forgot to mention there was a couple of others at points, but this is the one where it kind of comes to the end of that kind of arc, and you see the hint of a smile just starting to play, like, on her face, and it's like, yeah, she knows what she's doing, and yeah, obviously she knows what she's doing, but she enjoys what she's doing, more importantly, which is kind of sadistic.
Yeah, she calls pain and make her happy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and as she's walking away, she's calling her a heartless bitch, which on many levels she is, and I'm sure Sandy has no idea what she's been through. But I mean, since we're doing parallels to Lens here, this is a big one. Nora's just had the worst day, the worst interaction, and she comes home, and on some weird level, Kevin is making it worse again. At the end of Lens, she comes home.
Yeah, that's a good point.
She comes home and he tells her that Patty's there and he sees dead people. She walks in. Are you ready to go here?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Nora goes to Kinko's. All right, we went on that. My notes for the Kinko's and go putting up the posters. That's some cold shit at Benji's reaction. Because your reaction to that was.
Yeah, because I kind of clocked onto it like a second before it happened, and I was like, oh, wait a second. No, she's not. You. Yeah.
Those are usually the kind of reactions we hold for Lori from you.
Yeah, well, maybe, I don't know. Kevin's choice in women is clearly antagonizing me.
Yeah.
I like Nora, though. I'm not. Just stuff she does is questionable at times.
She sticks to you, Benji. I get it. I stick to you, Kevin. Anyway, at home, Nora walks in on Kevin suffocating himself. He quickly tries to explain, and in a comforting moment, she lets him know about the tattoo. Kevin goes for broke and asks Nora if they can have a baby together. Nora breaks out in laughter as Kevin looks devastated. Nora gets a call saying she needs to go to Australia with $20,000 to confront the people claiming to have the machine that can send people to where the departed went. She immediately says she's going, and Kevin asks if he can go with her, and she says yes. There's a ton to break down here. For my money, first of all, of course she was going to walk in on Kevin suffocating himself.
Yeah,
of course.
I mean, I feel that's reasonable enough. Like, it had to happen sooner or later if he's doing it that often.
Right. And obviously, if we're talking before, if it's a drug of some kind, he can't control himself. Right. I think it's even more, a bit more alarming that he wants to go to Australia, especially when the departure is coming to Jarden. But I think the thing I always take away from the scene is the look on Justin Theroux's face when she starts laughing at him about asking about the baby.
It's nobody should have to see that. Watch that twice.
It is the single worst best face of a man trying to laugh through pain that I've ever seen. I've made GIFs of it. I call it Sad Kevin. I haven't showed it to you before because, you hadn't seen this episode yet. It is without a doubt one of the worst, best things I've ever seen. And I feel so bad for him in that moment.
Yeah.
But I think she's right. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. They're not the most stable of parents right now. But I mean, that aside, it's like we just go from there's so many moments that just hit you. So there's walk in, Kevin's doing his thing, and then Nora's A1 Nora, she steps up to the plate and she's like, it's okay, and it's gold star Nora, you've been there for Kevin, great, we love you. And then Kevin suddenly just drops that, and it's like, oh, okay, he's getting real vulnerable now. Maybe he's seen Nora's she's there for him, and she's kind of shown that she'll be there for him no matter what, and he feels like he's ready to be more open with her. And then he says that and just gets the biggest slap across the face. As a viewer, you just get that secondhand embarrassment so bad. It's it's like you say, it's the worst. And I'm not sure I'd call it the best. So I think it's just the worst.
Best in acting wise.
Right. It is. Yeah.
Worst in feeling for a person and how he plays that, and how as a person, what kind of training do you have to go through to convey that in your face so perfectly, the shame and humiliation, but you're forcing yourself to try to laugh about it. And her laugh, I don't know if it's nervous or genuine. It can't be genuine funny.
No,
it's so big.
It doesn't even sound like a real laugh either. It's like the laugh of somebody who's sounds like the laugh of just tension exploding. You've got that build up, and then it's it just comes out in the weirdest way.
Yeah.
It's pretty piercing as well. Kind of cuts into you. The laugh.
Yeah. Her laugh.
Mm.
Yeah. And then she gets a call saying, meet us in Australia, bring $20,000. And she's like, gotta go. Immediately. It's not even a question. And it hasn't been a question to her. And I think she was very happy to get it when she did. And she was not expecting for him to ask to go with her. But after this moment, I don't think there's a way she can say no to him for almost anything. Right? And, smash cut to a kangaroo.
Yeah.
Basically. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything else to say about that before we get over to...
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too deep into psychology and talking about stuff I don't know about, but when Kevin asks, can I come with you? He just sounds like a little kid. He just sounds like somebody who just wants, doesn't want to be left on his own. He wants to...
Totally.
He just sounds like a child.
Which is, her response to him with the sleepwalking in season 2. We're going to handcuff you here so you can't leave me. And he's like, Mommy, can I please come with you? And she says, yes. And he's leaving 100% of his responsibility, 100% of his life to go to Australia because he has this chronic thing where he has to try to kill himself every day. And either go to a place or not go to a place that we don't know if he's going to or not.
And what's the weirdest thing is that they both sit across from each other and then say that they're both happy, which seems kind of, given what we've seen this episode. And Nora's kind of her thing about lying, not lying, seems a little odd that she would be so adamant that she's perfectly happy.
Yeah. So all will be revealed, I guess, in the due course. But we're in Australia now.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, the music of this last 10 minutes has always been a very turn-off for me. I'm not into the harp, otherworldly music, because that's what makes it seem like, we're moving to another world. I'm just not into it. I'm a big fan of Florence and the Machine, but this is not the kind of harp I like. So in Australia, 4 ladies on horses kidnap a truly grotesque man who happens to be a sheriff named Kevin. They place him on a seesaw in the water. I don't know if it's called that when it's teeter-totter seesaw.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
Because they think he cannot die. After many minutes, it is obvious that the man is dead. As soon as they realize this, Kevin Garvey Sr. comes out of a nearby house and asks the women what they are up to. And that's the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're, before they drown him, they read some passages of the Book of Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about him holding the stone to his chest, right? Which is the cinder block.
Mm-hmm.
Holding Kevin's cinder block to his chest and jumping in season 2.
Mm-hmm.
So you think about it for a second, because it is such a switch, and that's one of those shortened season things. Like, I'm sure this would have been a part of another episode in a longer season, right? It's like the last 10 minutes of this kind of crazy episode where we've seen all this Perfect Stranger stuff. We've got callbacks to, we've seen Erica, we've seen Tommy, we've seen everything. And then there's this, and we have a great actress here, and I forgot her name, but she was in the HBO series Rome. And they kidnapped this guy, and it was, watching your reaction was such a clear other separator reminder to what I've been desensitized to as, I guess, an older American TV watcher, and what you're desensitized to, because you're not desensitized at all. This was painful to watch you watch this part, to watch this man drowning, them killing this man, even though they make up this man to be a huge asshole.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. He's not a huge asshole.
He is, man. There's no two ways about it.
Come on. I don't know. What are we measuring as huge here? Like, he's a bit of a crappy boss. Is that like a cardinal sin?
He's more of a crabby boss. He takes his deputy down a peg or two by talking smack about whatever animal it is. He makes him clean the roo guts off the car. And then, 2 things he says to Grace, I think her name is, right? As, I'm going to have to get Mr. Playford, that kind of thing. And he calls him a bunch of C words. You know what I mean?
Well, they are blocking his drive on horseback.
Fair enough. Okay, he's a cool guy. I gotcha. I'm more.
Well, he's not a cool guy, but I feel like it's a bit early to judge him.
It's actually too late to judge him. It's over.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What do you think about this Australia stuff?
Well, like I said last time, I was thinking I was 2 steps ahead, but actually I was like 1 step behind, because of what happened in episode 1 and the way that I'd been like set kind of in the future. And I was like, okay, so we ended episode 1 with like a future segment. I guess it makes sense we're doing the same here. Oh yeah, I hear them. They're quoting the Book of Kevin, so that's Kevin. Wow, I wonder what will happen. And then kind of the longer it goes on, the more you realize nothing's going to happen, because there's like a minute left in the episode and you just watch in horror. And then you have the reveal right at the end of Kevin Garvey Sr., which kind of solidifies the fact that we're not in the future, we're in the present tense. And again, I'm like, you got me.
Right. I mean, I'm good for this episode unless you have something else to add.
I mean, we don't know much about the people on the horses, and we're not meant to. But 4 people on horses,
Well, sure.
the 4 horsemen,
Horsewomen.
horsewomen. Sorry. Yeah, I mean that was about it.
Yeah.
What are you watching on American TV, by the way, to be desensitized to that? Your daytime show that you let your children watch, is that preparing you for this?
They let my children watch. No, I was desensitized way before it. You know, I grew up with The Sopranos, Goodfellas, with The Wire. I wasn't. I'm desensitized. It's horrible and everything, but you get this visceral reaction from this kind of stuff where it makes you ill almost, and I'm just like, oh yeah, it's another day and someone's drowning someone. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the gun culture in this country too. I think a little bit, and video games not causing anything, but it's nothing for me to watch things like bad things are happening, and you obviously have a very visceral reaction. I don't know what's more visceral: you watching a man drink poison, get drowned to death, or Amy Brenneman walking into a room. You have the same reaction to those 3 things.
I'll grant you that.
So, I mean, that's it for me. I'm gonna get together with you real soon and talk about watching the next one. Next week we have something called Crazy White Fella Thinking. Is the name of the episode.
Oh, I thought you meant that's what we were going to be doing.
Yeah, well, there'll be some of that too, I'm sure. And it's no surprise to say that it's a Kevin Garvey Sr. Centric episode.
Oh, well, I know you said it's not your favorite, but I like that guy, so.
Yeah, so,
enjoy it.
It's one of those things where I'm going to watch it again and I'm going to love it, so I know how I go.
Yep.
Thanks for coming, buddy.
Yeah, okay.
Everybody, hope you liked it. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next time.